George Floyd's story has been the story of black folks, because ever since 401 years ago, the reason we could never be who we wanted and dreamed to be in is you kept your knee on our neck. It's time for us to stand up in George's name and say, get your knee off our necks.
2 years after Reverend Al Sharpton issued that plea at George Floyd's memorial service, let's talk about where America stands in the quest for racial justice. Joining me now with their reflections, Renee Graham, columnist and associate editor at the Boston Globe, Michael Steele, MSNBC political analyst and former chairman of the RNC, and Christina Greer, associate professor of political science at Fordham University and the author of Black Ethnics, Race, Immigration, and the Pursuit of the American Dream. Thank you all very much, and belated thank you, Michael, for filling in last weekend. So here we are, 2 years after George Floyd galvanized the movement for racial justice. Each of you, tell me, where do you think we stand? Renee, you go first.
I think we stand pretty much where we were before George Floyd was murdered. We were promised a reckoning, but, all we've gotten is an executive order. And, it's an important step, and I don't want to deride it, unnecessarily, but it barely scratches the surface of what's necessary for a ground-up transformation of policing in America, not to mention all these other aspects of racial injustice that was supposed to be dealt with after George Floyd's murder.
Chairman Steele?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't think that the movement towards what the Reverend was talking about in terms of getting the knee off the neck, that movement has really taken hold the way one would have hoped after that. I just give you Buffalo. I give you, what we're dealing with right now in Texas. There's still very, very powerful elements in our country that don't want to let go of that old narrative, that still see Black and brown people as an obstacle to their own survival, that still see Black and brown people as something that is worthy of elimination, and that this country is their country. Well, baby, we stepped foot on the soil the same time you did. So, this is not a narrative that folks really want to get into. And I think that the truth still remains is how the culture and the society as a whole decides to push forward to really force America to tell that story honestly. CRT and those other efforts, Jonathan, are designed to shut us up. It's not only do we want to keep the knee on the neck, but we want to shut you up too. So you can't tell that story. We don't want to know that story. And I think that's going to continue to be a problem as long as that attitude is allowed to survive out on the streets.
Professor Greer, I want to get your reflections, but I want to put this out there. In the wake of the Buffalo shooting, the Washington Post poll shows that 75% of African Americans fear they or someone they love will be attacked because they are Black. You know what? I count myself among that 75%. Absolutely.
Right. Jonathan, that number seems quite low, to be quite honest. I think a lot of Americans like justice and equity in theory, but when it comes time for the hard work and the deep digging and the self-reflection, that's where we sort of fall off. As Renee said, 2 years ago, there was this groundswell of, action, perceived action, and a reckoning. And we got Juneteenth as a holiday, which no one asked for, by the by. We asked for a real reflection and an uprooting of so many police departments across the country. I mean, the executive order is a start, but we know that it carries the weight of a law, but it is not a law, and it can be changed with the next presidency. And so as we try and change what's going on in these police departments, having trainings and anti-bias trainings is one small step. We have to remember the police officers who murdered George Floyd had gone through those very trainings. Yeah, so we know that that's not an effective tool to change the hearts and minds of so many of these police officers. Again, not all, but so many of these police officers who see Black and Latino children, men and women as a threat to society, as not belonging, as not real Americans, and as they hold their fire for white domestic terrorists, we see that they don't have that same sympathy, compassion, or empathy when it comes to any individual that's Black or Latino.
You know, I tried to find, I'm an optimist. You know, I try to be an optimist. As I get older, it gets a little more difficult. But when I read stories like the one of the Buffalo murderer who not only drove 4 hours to a Black neighborhood, but researched it. Like, where can I find a high concentration of Black people so I can go and hunt them down and kill them because of this, quote unquote, great replacement theory? Look at that. There's 10 people there who were just going about their lives, grocery shopping, and were hunted down by a racist. I guess I'm looking to the three of you for some semblance, if not hope, something to keep me on the positive side of the ledger. Anybody?
I mean, well, Jonathan, I'm a pragmatic optimist because I'm an educator. And so I have the privilege of spending time with the youth of America. And so this new generation is on it. They understand some of the obstacles we face. But we also have to be very honest about, you know, how white supremacists have infiltrated our military and our police departments. And so as the chairman said, we have to really push back, and it can't just be Black Americans pushing back against the bans on CRT. To know Black history is to know American history. White people should feel enraged that they don't know what happened in their country. They should feel as though to not know Black history is to not know their own history because we're so intricately connected for the past 4 centuries.